Hello, everybody. Hope you're doing well. You know, on the list of basic human needs, thirst holds first place. It trumps everything, and it's got no challengers. A couple of basic things you may recall from a high school class. Water is an odorless, tasteless, transparent liquid at room temperature. Water covers 70% of the Earth's surface. 97% of that is salt water. Only 3% is fresh water, and 2/3 of that is ice. Roughly 60% of our bodies are made of water. Here's a great fact. The same water that existed on this earth millions of years ago is still present today. Water is necessary for life. And one final fact, water is wet. Human beings drink, freeze, boil, bottle, sell, protect, pollute, dam, and waste water. We bathe, shower, swim, dive, fish, and even drown in water. We sail, canoe, travel, ski, float, live, and go to war on water. We generate energy, cool turbines, fill balloons, and cook with water. Human beings also fight for water. Water, or in some cases, the lack of water, has been the significant factor in numerous global disasters. Notable among these are the Indian Ocean tsunami of 2004, which most of us recall, in which 155,000 lives were lost. Hurricane Katrina in 2005, in which just shy of 2,000 lives were lost. The Great Flood of 1931 in China, in which over 3 million lives were lost. Another drought in China in the late 19th century, in which 9 million lives were lost. And a drought in India and the resultant famine in 1769 that killed 10 million people. Now, for you English majors among us, it's worth noting that water is often used metaphorically throughout the Bible. It's a symbol of trouble, abundance, power, cleansing, sustenance, revival, and refreshment. The scripture passages that Trey just shared with us and spared us from reading all the way through the Bible actually represent the very first time and the very last time that water is mentioned in the Bible. In the first chapter of Genesis, water is one of a handful of large and formless creations that existed at the origins of the universe. At that distant, hard to imagine moment in time, it is stated that the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And then in the final chapter of Revelation, chapter 22, the very last chapter in the Bible, water represents metaphorically life itself. And at that future hard to determine moment in time, it is stated, "Let the one who is thirsty come, if that person wishes to take the free gift of water, of the water of life." Now, even at the extreme edges of our imaginations, it's impossible for us to project the reality of either of those scenes. One is so infinitely in the past, and one in some other far-off place in the future. But to reiterate, these two verses or passages bracket the entirety of the Bible. But in between, the word water is mentioned another 720 times. And Trey also read one of those other entries. "As the deer pants for streams of water, so my soul pants for you, my God." It continues, my soul thirsts for God, for the living God. Now, there are lots of other Bible stories in which water is a major player. Certainly, we would think of the flood of Noah, Moses parting the Red Sea, Jesus turning water into wine, and Jesus and Peter walking on the water, which Trey addressed recently. Those huge, massive stories and narratives tend to overshadow these modest few phrases that begin the 42nd Psalm. But we're wise to consider the powerful, profound, and very personal heart cry echoing down to us from these two brief statements. The book of Psalms, as demonstrated by our wonderful bridge band just a few moments ago, the book of Psalms is a hymnal. It's a collection of poems and songs assembled by the Jewish people over the course of about 1,000 years. Most of us have heard them referred to as the Psalms of David. That, in fact, is inaccurate. Other people wrote some of the Psalms. Moses, for instance. Solomon, one of David's sons. David, of course. And then there's this group of anonymous musicians and priests identified as the family of Asaph and the sons of Korah. And although Psalm 42 is not attributed to David, it seems that one of the sons of Korah, credited with its authorship, must have been reading David's mind, or in more contemporary parlance, must have been channeling David. The circumstances and tone of this psalm are very David-like. Whomever it was, they were in dire straits physically, emotionally, and spiritually. It's a desolate landscape we encounter in Psalm 42, wherein the writer is estranged from everything he knows and loves. And perhaps it is in the very depths of these heart-aching conditions that the writer looks out into a parched field and sees a frail fawn desperately seeking the refuge and refreshment of a brook filled with cool, flowing water. It's likely that the fawn was being chased by a predator across what was surely a dry and rugged terrain in a remote portion of a very ancient land. And in that moment, this writer saw a portrait of his own existence, frightened, lonely, desperate, longing, and yes, thirsty. On the list of basic human needs, thirst owns first place. It trumps everything. It has no challengers. Thirst gets our attention, and it demands immediate action. If we ignore the fact that thirst is banging on our door, it will break in begin stealing from us, stealing the essence of our lives, and will soon destroy us. You know the data. Human beings can survive as much as 3 weeks without food, but only about 3 or 4 days without water, and about 5 minutes without checking our iPhones. In the opening lines of Psalm 42, the author chose to reference this most fundamental need of all living things, water, and apply it to his need for communion with God. Do you feel like that? Have you ever felt like that? Can you say that your soul is relentlessly and desperately panting for the refuge and refreshment of God's presence? Or do we need to be chased by some unknown and unexpected predator across the occasionally dry and rugged terrain of these lives that we lead until we realize how much we need and long for communion with God? Generally speaking, our lives move forward pretty gently and pretty pleasantly. Our needs are met, and we lack very little. In fact, most of us live with great abundance. This is not to discount or disregard the inevitable difficulties that we encounter. Like this fellow in Psalm 42, perhaps sitting alone in a desert leaning up against a giant rock, isn't it often the truth that we only stop and seek the comfort of God's presence when the inevitable hard times come? As the deer pants for streams of water, so my soul pants for you, my God. My soul thirsts for God, for the living God. Water surrounds us. It is the essence of what we are. It was here at the beginning. It will be here at the end. In the meantime, if your soul is thirsty, Jesus himself has invited you to come take the free gift of the water of life. Would you pray with me, please? Eternal God, the words that you left us with in your Holy Scripture continue to move us, to call us forth, to call us into your arms and into your love. May we have the courage